Manipulators don't fear confrontation. They don't fear anger. They don't even fear being called out. What they fear is clarity. They fear someone who sees through the game and refuses to play. Carl Jung didn't write about manipulators the way we use the word today, but he studied something far more powerful: the unconscious drives that control people's behavior, especially those who lie, twist, guilt trip, and gaslight. And in this video, we're going to give you 3 psychological moves that stop manipulators cold, not with aggression, but with depth, groundedness, and soul. Let's begin. First, you need to understand something essential. Manipulators don't choose random targets. They choose people who are willing to explain themselves, willing to doubt themselves, willing to overfunction in relationships, willing to shrink to keep the peace. If that's been you, this isn't a judgment. It's a map out of the fog and into your power. And it begins with the first move. Move number 1, don't argue. Mirror. This is the opposite of what we've been trained to do. When someone accuses you unfairly, what's your first instinct? To defend, to explain, to prove your innocence. But this plays directly into the manipulator's hands, because now you're on trial, you're emotional, you're overreacting. They've shifted the focus from their behavior to your reaction, and suddenly you're losing a battle you didn't start. But what happens when you stop playing defense? What happens when you stop arguing and start mirroring? Everything shifts. Carl Jung believed that the shadow, the unconscious, rejected part of ourselves, is often projected onto others. That's what manipulators do. They make you carry what they refuse to face. Their shame, their insecurity, their guilt. So how do you stop this? With one phrase. That sounds like something you're struggling with. That's it. Calm, simple, neutral. You're not taking the bait, you're handing it back. They say, "You're always so sensitive." You say, "That sounds like something you're uncomfortable with." They say, "You're acting crazy." You say, "That seems like something you're not willing to understand right now." You're not insulting them. You're not diagnosing them. You're just reflecting the truth and refusing to wear it. That's how you mirror. And manipulators hate mirrors, because mirrors show them what they've worked so hard to hide. Let's go deeper. Why does this work? Because you're shifting the power dynamic without raising your voice. You're not explaining. You're not apologizing. You're not debating. You're grounded. And groundedness is unnerving to people who survive through chaos. Jung believed that facing the shadow is the scariest thing we can do. So most people avoid it and instead project it onto others. But when you hold the mirror steady with calm language and no emotional hook, you become immune to their manipulation because you've exited the drama triangle. No longer the victim, no longer the rescuer, no longer the scapegoat. You've stepped outside the story, and now you write your own. Move number 2. Use emotional deadweight. This might sound strange, but manipulators feed off emotion. They crave your reactivity, your desperation, your anxiety. Why? Because it gives them control. It lets them twist the narrative. It makes you predictable. But when you stop reacting emotionally, you become a blank wall. And blank walls are terrifying to people who need chaos to feel powerful. Jung wrote, "Where wisdom reigns, there is no conflict between thinking and feeling." Emotional deadweight is not about being cold. It's about removing your emotional availability from conversations designed to drain you. Here's how this looks in practice. They say, "You don't care about me anymore." You say, "You're entitled to your story." Flat tone, soft eyes, no hook. They say, "You've changed. You're different." You say, "That's possible." No panic, no proving, no scrambling to make them feel better. You let the silence speak, because manipulators expect you to fill it with justification, with guilt, with begging. But when you don't, they're forced to sit with themselves, And that's the one person they've been running from all along. This doesn't mean you're cruel. It means you've stopped leaking your life force into a bottomless pit. You've stopped using your emotions to negotiate your right to exist peacefully. That is power. And it's terrifying to those who only feel important when you feel unstable. Let's be honest, if you're an empath, this is hard. You're used to being emotionally responsive. You care, you feel, and manipulators sense that. They use it. They create confusion, then offer relief. They poke your wounds, then offer a hug. They abandon you, then return with charm. This pattern is called trauma bonding, and it works by keeping you in a constant loop of hope and despair. But when you use emotional deadweight, you step out of the loop. You stop feeding the cycle, you stop performing, you start observing. And that shift ends the spell. Move number 3, name the pattern, not the person. This is where Jung's brilliance shines through. He believed that when we name the unconscious pattern, we weaken its hold. But if we focus only on the person, we stay trapped in blame. Blame keeps us locked in duality, right versus wrong, good versus evil. Naming the pattern, however, elevates us. It lets us see clearly, without hatred, without entanglement. And manipulators, they rely on confusion. They need you focused on the last insult, the latest betrayal, the freshest lie. But when you zoom out, when you name what's really happening, you gain perspective. And perspective is poison to control. Here's what naming the pattern sounds like. This feels like a cycle of push and pull. I've noticed I always feel confused after we talk. There's a lot of drama here, but not a lot of resolution. This reminds me of how I felt in childhood, anxious and unsafe. This dynamic doesn't align with the kind of peace I'm building. You're not calling them toxic, you're not diagnosing them, you're simply narrating the energy. And manipulators can't spin energy, they can spin words, but energy is undeniable. They feel the shift, the click, because you're not in the fog anymore, you're in your seat of power, your center, yourself. Jung's entire philosophy was built around this idea that wholeness requires awareness, not perfection, not revenge, not righteousness, just the willingness to see what is true and act from that truth. That's what these 3 moves are about. They don't silence the manipulator through domination. They silence them through clarity, and clarity is something the unconscious can't survive in. Let's recap. Move 1. Don't argue. Mirror. Reflect their projection instead of defending yourself. Use neutral language. Avoid the trap of proving. Move 2. Use emotional deadweight. Remove reactivity. Let silence speak louder than defense. Move 3. Name the pattern, not the person. Focus on the dynamic. Step into observation instead of entanglement. These are not tactics. They are transformations. They require you to rise, to grow, to individuate. Because here's the truth. You can't out-manipulate a manipulator. You can only outgrow them. You can only become so grounded, so self-aware, so rooted in truth, that their games simply fall flat. That's when they lose interest. Or implode. Or lash out one last time. Let them. It's not your job to fix them, to explain yourself, to teach them how to love. Your job is to stay rooted in yourself. And that self is built through shadow work, through boundary work, through sacred detachment. Jung once said, "We cannot change anything unless we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." You don't need to condemn manipulators, you just need to stop participating. That's what liberates you. Not vengeance, but vision. Vision of who you are, without their projections. Vision of what you want, without their distractions. Vision of what peace feels like, after a lifetime of performing calm in the middle of emotional war zones. You deserve peace that doesn't demand performance. And here's something even deeper. When you detach from manipulation, you don't just heal yourself, you heal your lineage. Every ancestor who stayed in abusive patterns because they couldn't leave. Every caregiver who fawned to survive. Every child who made themselves small to stay safe. You are the ending of that cycle and the beginning of something new. Carl Jung believed that the soul longs for wholeness. And sometimes, wholeness begins the moment you say, I see what's happening, and I won't play that role anymore. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to scream it. Just live it. Let your nervous system feel the difference. Let your silence speak louder than explanation. Let your gaze remain soft, even when your boundaries are firm. That is transformation. That is individuation. If this message found you at the right time, if it made you breathe deeper, if you finally feel seen, comment truth below. And subscribe for more Jungian psychology every week. This is the work. This is the way out. This is your return to self, and your clarity will set you free.